Look at that, Steve. We're chatting away, not realizing we haven't hit the go live button.
Yeah, just fucking around, Another Tuesday afternoon.
Another Wednesday morning for me. Got my coffee, got my swanee on. Because here in New Zealand, we call a swan dry. It's a traditional bit of farming garb in the old tartan. Keeps you warm on the countryside.
Between that and the big beard, you're starting to look like a farmer. We need to get you a hat.
I don't know. Have you seen? I've tidied the bed up since last week because I was in Auckland last week. My wife booked me in at a barber. It was like, enough of that hairy, woolly mammoth shit. Like, you need to tidy that up.
We still need to get you a farmer's hat.
Oh, I've got a farmer's hat.
Do you? What does a farmer's hat look like in New Zealand?
One second. Say hello to our guest while I get it.
Hey, Norm, Debbie, how you guys doing? Mark, how's it going? Patty, how's it going? I guess we're gonna see what a New Zealand farmer's hat looks like. Hey, Ken, glad to see you guys join us. We'll talk a little bit about Wave 2 today, and then we'll just make some shit up. Let me close this a little bit. There, that's a little better. All right, where the hell do you have to go get that farmer's hat?
There we go. How's that?
So you kind of look like Indiana Jones' hat that got run over by a semi a couple of times. That's a legit farmer's hat, though, huh?
That's my farmer's hat. It's my legit farmer's hat. Yeah. Now, what have you got a dog there with you today?
I do. It's this is Jax. This is my ex-wife / current girlfriend.
That sounds interesting.
This is her dog that we actually got before we split. And now I've got him back. So he's okay. He can be a little annoying sometimes, but mostly a pretty good dog. Mostly a pretty good dog.
I see. I just
got any animals on your farm?
Got any what?
Animals on your farm?
No, I've only just had my new fence put in this week, which allows me now to get animals.
And you're going to do that because you can green belt it or do something for taxes and stuff?
Probably? No. Just more. I'm definitely gonna. This is gonna be my animal mix of my property. I'm gonna get chickens. I'm gonna get bees. I'm gonna start, tending bees. I'm gonna get probably sheep, goats, and calves, which ultimately will become cows. So that's my aim for a few livestock on the bit of land, and probably 2 dogs and a cat or 2.
I see. All right. Well, settling right into farm life there.
Yeah. See, Mark's joined us. Everyone's on. Patty, how are you, Patty? Ken, Norm, Debbie. Great to have you guys all on here.
So everybody, just so everybody knows, we always cover all the good stuff in the half-hour pre-call before we go live, and then we forget what the hell we were talking about. I know we were talking AppSource again. We keep beating the drum on AppSource and some of the leadership around that, and we were talking about I don't know, just what a cluster that is. We were talking about a big ISV that we both know that has paid a pretty good chunk in and is feel like he hasn't gotten anything in return, nor did he need anything in return from Microsoft for that money,
Yeah.
And
so that was based on a podcast I did, which was coming up in the next month or so.
And you just launched your pod with Alyssa Taylor.
Yeah, and that's a good podcast worth checking out. I wouldn't listen to the Alyssa Taylor podcast without first listening to the Alyssa Taylor podcast that she did with you, because I actually referenced that because I know you went into a lot of numbers and stuff around MBAS. We get into a bit more detail about what does, the future look like, especially with the head of sales now moving across to Pega, Hayden Stafford.
Yeah.
And that was obviously an amicable move by the, what comes out, as I say, in the podcast I had with her. But yeah, it was a really good podcast. She was very open and forthcoming, particularly around the impacts of COVID has had on their business. And it's not a negative impact. It's been quite positive. And I don't know if you're seeing this, but I'm noticing now a range of companies advertising for staff in our space. So yesterday I saw a former colleague of mine ask, he wanted 2 developers that are developers on the Power Platform, so .NET developers, but with Power Platform Dynamics 365 experience. Didn't care where they were based in the world, but they're hiring 2 at the moment just to keep up with workload here in New Zealand. So there's work growing, that's just one close to home, but I'm seeing other places announce that there's new jobs and stuff as well around the globe. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. I got a buddy of mine in Germany. ISV opened up a office in Miami, Florida, and he's looking for some people in the Power Platform space, both technical and sales. And so there's definitely still some activity. I definitely don't think our industry got hurt as bad as a lot. Where we got hurt would be to a degree that our customers or potential customers, had some problems, and that probably has a lot to do with how verticalized you might be. Hey, look at that. Mr. Cognetta has joined.
Yeah, I see.
Wow.
Christopher's joined us. Welcome. Good to have you back. I see you got renewed as an MVP as well, Chris. So good work.
Yep, and they're well off on their Chris and Chuck and company well off on their new venture as well, a new practice.
Is that public knowledge?
That better be public knowledge. I
don't know.
Chris, tell me if I'm supposed to shut up quickly, Chris. Oops.
Classic. I tell you what, I did an interesting podcast this last week with an MVP that I thought was an MVP and was no longer an MVP.
Right on that threshold there, right when you went over.
So it's an interesting. What's he talking about, Mark? It's interesting that it was an interesting podcast from the point of view. I was interviewing someone that 8 days earlier had lost his MVP after a good period of time. And so I think it's interesting seeing that kind of experience of the other side and the loss of it, if you like, and that kind of impact.
I don't know that there's many people that would lose it that would be surprised that they lost it. I mean, maybe every now and then. I mean, obviously with Whitman a couple of years ago, I think that kind of caught everybody off guard. But that was some sort of just mistake. Somebody just missed something there.
Yeah.
But I think most people that lose it, we all look and go, yeah, well, I really haven't heard much from them. I'm not surprised, and I'm sure they're not surprised either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I was telling you before the show. I mean, I want to continue to keep the MVP designation as long as it does me some good. The minute it doesn't really do me any good anymore for whatever reason, change in my path or for whatever reason, I'm not going to go through all the effort to maintain it. And I won't miss it when it's gone either, because I won't need it anymore. So, I mean, it's something I'm using today to try and create an unfair advantage in what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
If I was doing something else, I wouldn't worry about it, or in a different situation, even in the industry, But, so I don't know that a lot of people, I mean, every now and then you'll definitely see somebody out there crying sour grapes that lost it.
Yeah. He definitely wasn't that. So I did find it interesting because I think there's an element that you might know that you're not going to get it, but it's kind of like, even breaking up after a relationship, you're like, there were the good, all of a sudden you realize that, there's kind of the loss is there and it's real as now, you don't get to just contemplate it. It's now in effect. And I think that yeah, is perhaps not what everyone thought it was, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I'm definitely not wanting to let it define me.
No.
I mean, if I lost it, I lost it. Frankly, there's disadvantages to having it also, in that when you already have a bunch of connections inside of Microsoft that you can talk to about stuff, but then you're bound by this crazy NDA that we're bound by. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I can't talk about, that if I wasn't an MVP, I would still know and I could still talk about.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a handcuff there.
Hey, Scott, welcome. One of the things I noticed coming up in one of the MVP back channels in the last week is people talking about feeling a bit lost at the moment, as in, and with that loss, feeling a lack of motivation, a lack of melancholy, yeah, lack of excitement about the industry at the moment, lack of excitement around the projects, that they're on. And I don't know, I would say, because I'm in winter here, that's just the winter blues. Maybe it's seasonal, but I mean, these individuals that we're chatting about are all in the Northern Hemisphere, which are midsummer at the moment. Some are saying is that the lack of human connection inside our community as an outside of video conferencing.
Yeah, it could be virus related. It's driven a lot of people into, not just, I've always worked from home, so that wasn't a big factor for me. There wasn't any change there. But what is a change is, that you just lose touch with everybody, man.
Yeah.
Walking around with face masks on, you can't tell if people are even smiling anymore. There's definitely a loss of connection with the world and what's going on, even when you're still out there. And here we had another record here, Florida, 15,000 new cases reported, 2 days ago. I don't know what it is now.
Wow.
That was just that was in one day. 15,000 new cases. Listen to. But the death rate is still lower also. So I think what seems like is happening is we're finding a lot more people, because the testing is all over now. We're finding a lot more people that have it, that before probably had it, got over it, and nobody ever even knew they had it.
What's weird to me, I feel like the media has stopped playing up the death toll so much, to a degree as well. I know it is less, but I was doing another podcast with a guy in Brussels, and Belgium is not a big country, and over 10,000 people had died in that tiny country. And I'm like, shit. When he went to say 10,000, I was like, 10,000 cases. Oh yeah. 10,000 deaths. I was like,
yeah, right.
Far out. That's a lot. And
well, I think there's a whole bunch of the population, like Chris says, that have it and just don't have any effects at all. Young people get it. They don't even get a cough. They get nothing. So now all these people are being tested, so they're popping up, which is why I think the test numbers are getting higher.
Yeah.
But I do think that we definitely need to be watching. I'm more concerned about the death numbers, because that tells you whether we're getting a handle on it or not.
Yeah.
Because all those people that got it and got over it, they were never a problem in the first place. It's only the ones that got it and died from it we got to worry about,
Yeah. So anyhow, about those working from home blues, and I think, I see Chris has said, he talks about, he says it's working from home blues. I've worked from home now for 2 years, maybe I'm my third year now, but I definitely found this was different. I don't know whether it was the forced quarantine that we had. As I said, I used to be a massive reader. In the last 2 years, each year I've read over 60 odd books a year. When COVID hit, I think I was up to 20 odd books for the year so far I'd read. And it just stopped me in my tracks. I haven't read any book since about March or mid-March.
Really?
No motivation to. So I'm not forcing it. I'm just not motivated to read at the moment.
Which is saying something for you, because you are a avid reader.
Yeah. Yeah, also stop meditating. You know, I used to meditate consistently for the last 3 years daily. And through COVID, no meditation whatsoever as well. So very, very bizarre how it's impacted everyone a little differently.
I was trying to find Chris Cognetta's email. I was going to shoot him an invite, have him join us. You mind?
Gotcha. Wave 2 announcements have been made this past week. What are your thoughts? What excites you?
Yeah. You know, I was on a call a couple of months ago with a team that was trying to take the app and make them more app-like, right?
Okay.
We had the Dynamics 365 app on the phone, and we're talking about phone apps now, you know,
Yeah,
Android,
yeah.
iPhone.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, basically they were really just responsive websites. As a matter of fact, in demoing to people, all I would do is just reduce the website screen down on the screen and say, there's what the mobile app looks like.
Show it's responsive, yeah.
Yeah, all responsive. And yeah, but lots of folks have been kind of, I guess, griping about how this doesn't work like an app works on my phone. It just works like a website. So they undertook an effort there to try and make it feel more like I remember looking at a bunch of wireframes and stuff they were working on. And it was so funny too, because I mean, I don't build mobile apps for iPhones, but I use them.
Yeah.
Just like you, just like anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to that team, it was like, seriously, you don't get, I mean, I'm not an expert at all, I'm just a user, and I can tell you guys aren't understanding what a freaking app is.
Yeah.
Also, just goofy stuff in their thinking, but they did finally come out with the one. Matter of fact, I'll drop a link in the chat here about it. If you see Cogs jumping on, you know, I sent him the link to join our Teams call or whatever the hell call it.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me see it. I got to bring up my participant list now. Yeah, okay, cool. If he jumps in.
Yeah, Cogs, check your email and click that link. And
what's the docs article you just shared there?
So this is about the new Dynamics 365 sales mobile app. And
Gotcha.
they're gonna come up with a service mobile app and a sales mobile app, and this is really about this. I sent it to your outlook.com, Chris. Oh, wait a minute, didn't go. I forgot to put a subject in it. There, now it's gone. Yes, it's the whole idea of making it more app-like. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up coming up with.
Okay.
I think you can build things that are more app-like with Canvas. You know, we've done a few things like that with Canvas that look fairly app-like, more so than model-driven. You know, model-driven clearly just looks like a responsive web forms.
On the call you had with Alyssa, she and you talked about the confusion around PowerApps versus PowerApps. You know, in other words, the customer doesn't know the difference between the Canvas and model-driven, and she hinted to you that soon to be announced was a clarification, and it's all going to be sorted. Have you seen anything in Wave 2 that hints at that, or any update?
I haven't seen anything, and I think that like you and I were saying, they're probably saving that for Inspire timeline.
Yeah.
But it's funny because after a couple of years of denying that there is any confusion, whenever we would all bring it up, and they would just deny that we're not hearing that from anyone. I'm thinking, oh, you fucking liars. How can you not be hearing that from anyone? I'm hearing it from everyone. How can nobody at Microsoft be hearing that from any customer? What a bullshit. So I spent 2 years denying that there was confusion, and now they finally have said, yes, we're going to come up with something to solve all of the confusion that has been created by that. So I don't know what the plan is or how they're going to do it.
So this is a bit of the backstory I heard around majorly how the confusion came, and this came from one of our listeners on the show who works in the government space in the US. And he was saying, you know, James Phillips took the role, you know, and introduced the whole Power App thing from an Office 365 perspective. and they were building that CDS one underneath it, right? And that was all going to be the Power App story. And the further they got down that path, the more they realized to build CDS one was not going to be a quick or a simple job. And of course, then they decided to adopt CDS directly from, what we've always had in Dynamics. And so that's where the confusion came about, is that, Philips built the whole reputation around PowerApps. That was going to be the future. Dynamics is, dead. That's not where it's going to be at. And then what happened, of course, is that we have the outcome of today where he ended up getting both products, and they're both called PowerApps.
Yeah, I think there was this thought in the very early days that this was all going to become one thing, and so let's just save some trouble down the road and give it all the same name. But clearly, it took way too long to get there, and it's still not there. And I don't know that it's ever going to actually get what I would consider to be there.
Yeah,
they should have had different names. Well, we got the same thing now with the what's the new name for voice of the customer? He's in the lobby. Can you let him in? Mark, he's in your lobby. Ah, there he is. Connecting to audio.
there he goes, coming in. Yeah. What were you saying between virtual agents?
No, they renamed Voice of the Customer, or they got rid of Voice of the Customer, but they renamed Forms Pro. They're going to be renaming that Customer Voice. And
Are they really?
Yeah, just stupid stuff they're doing. Hey, Chris, how you doing, man?
Gentlemen, good to see you, brothers. How are you?
Good.
Yeah,
Good,
we got
good.
3 bald MVPs on the line at once.
I like it. We can shine a light on the world.
Yeah, exactly. Just reflecting it off our heads.
Have you got news, Chris? Have you got news? What's happening in your world? Are you changing roles or what?
No, man. Still, I'm taking on more work. Campus was bought out in a merger. It's now called. Sorry, I got something in my mouth. Anthology is the name. So it's a combination of 3 of the largest higher ed providers in the world. So it means a lot of great things for us, and being able to really offer best of breed across the entire school. So whatever you're doing in a campus that you can think of, we now are a part of a group that has all of those solutions. So it's a really cool way to corner the market and provide that technology stack. So glad to be doing that. I will be taking over some Dynamics 365 F&O stuff. So that will be a whole team working on that, and already doing the product development on the CRM side of Engage. So doing that will be a nice chore, as you know.
How closely do you work with Jerry Weinstock?
So Jerry is a member of our team, and he has been one of the chief architects on the dynamic side. Primarily, obviously, we do a lot of flow. We're using the Power Platform tremendously, both not only with Microsoft selling it, but also with the schools. Wine Engage, PowerApps, COVID, all of these things are all driving that adoption.
Have you paid your have you paid your fees for distributing on the Power Platform?
No, sir.
No, sir. Did you say?
No, sir.
Don't
say I'm not biting in any of these hooks, so I know both of you too well. I want to stay in MVP, so I'm just not going to answer.
Did campus management start out as an in-school project, or has it always been an external ISV solution?
When joining them and doing the research, they were in business over 30 years when I joined.
As an ISV software.
Yeah. So they've had the data. Their claim to fame is their SIS, which is a student information system. Basically, it's an ERP for students. So if you think about financial aid and all the things that go around with that, tracking students, courses, grades, scholarships, tuitions, all of that is a part of what happens in the SIS. So that's where a majority of the school has come from. But that has adopted into, hey, we need a system for admissions. Hey, we need a system for alumni. Hey, we need donor management. So, and those are all being deployed at a rapid pace. It's really interesting when you go to a school. I don't think I've ever been to a company where you're at the company and they have 6 different CRM platforms, 3 different database administrators. They're working as like the IT department doesn't exist. As far as you're giving out your AD, your computer, and your Office subscription, most cases Google, but that's it. You know, everybody else is, you start opening up the umbrella and you're like, wait a second, they have 5 different CRM systems, right?
Yeah.
Sure. The School of Business has theirs. The School of Nursing has theirs. They all got their own departments that got theirs.
They all want to talk to each other. So again, CDS helps us do that, helps us contain a different model. It allows them to do things that they haven't been able to do in the past. So certainly with this industry has not slowed down. It's actually gone into high gear. So referencing your comments, you know, having a whole team that's now working from home. We've got 400 employees in India working from home.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's quite a challenge with the infrastructure that's there. There are people working nights, different shifts. There's no internet during the day, so they're working in the evening, right?
Wow.
There's lots of different ways to stay proactive. But back to where you guys were heading with that conversation, I feel like it's one giant long work week that hasn't stopped, right?
Yeah.
Where it's a weekend call, it's a Saturday call, and what do? You come walk right back into your home office and you start working again. I think that's what's the biggest change, right, for all of us. I mean, I'm working home. I've been working at home now for over 10 years. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Abby Torres, over at Reemployability, and we were talking about the fact that not even going to the conferences, right? Those were like little mini vacations for all of us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you're missing it, right? Being able to jump all over the place. I mean, you've been to what? How many countries now?
You're ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're locked in. You can't go anywhere. So I think that is what's really impacting everybody. It's great to see your faces. That's why I said, hey, let me join the call with you guys and be able to see you guys, because I miss everybody just like I miss talking to the community, right? Steve, I echo your comments on the MVP stuff. People don't realize the stress of being an MVP and what it is, right? They don't see the, constantly have to write logs, be on podcasts, speaking sessions. Well, for all of us, it has ripped the carpet right out, because not only do we not have any not online events, but we're not able to go speak at events. Now we're doing this all virtually. So there's more people that can do it virtually, and opportunities to talk to the community have become less and less. So
it's going to be
definitely a lot.
It's going to be interesting, because you've got, every time I turn around, there's some new event being launched somewhere, some country, about Power Platform, this, that, or the other, call for speakers, whatever.
So I just put one in the link there, which has come up quite a bit this last couple of weeks, called Dynamics Con.
And
I just talked to Rami about that one.
Yeah, they're all virtual events. So really, anybody anywhere, I mean, there's no reason anybody anywhere can't come speak at those things. See, and then YouTube is full of people that are just producing their own content out there, and I think without that physical audience to stand up in front of and be recognized by Microsoft as speaking to a group, these virtual things are going to be difficult to get really recognized for, unless you're, doing something like Mark, where he's churning out a series of them, boom, 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 and got a whole string of them. But just for your typical MVP, doing some random virtual sessions here and there, I don't know.
Yeah, you also need that double. So like this kind of conversation, you can see someone, but it'd be very hard for me to present content to you and show you me and do that. You need a dual system. I think, like Microsoft did the MVP one, I thought that really gave me the feeling that the person was standing in the room and talking to us and showing the content. I think that's the way to really get it done versus some recorded video.
Have you seen these new team features that are coming out? They look phenomenal, and that you can have the speaker's head about the same size as the presentation slideware, but then you can have your audience all sitting in a theater kind of, you can see their interactions.
Yeah.
And I think if you can,
It's the Teams whiteboard camera.
So it looks like we might have lost Mark for a second there.
I'm your new co-host. How you doing, Steve?
He drops in. You know, you mentioned all the different countries that he's been at, and he's ended up at this little wart on the side of Australia.
Uh-oh. Is he stuck? Is he stuck there? Is he allowed to move or?
But he's down in New Zealand. He's definitely living there now. So he's on the bottom of the world. So, and he is frozen. See, the last couple of shows we've had, he's gotten frozen, and he's continued saying that I was frozen, but actually he was frozen. Didn't realize it. So hopefully he'll pop back in. It's funny here. You and I are talking to Mark, who's pretty much dead opposite side of the planet for where you and I are. Yet you and I are probably about 30 minutes apart.
Yeah, not even, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in downtown now. I'm on Harbor Island now, and you're up in Weston Chapel, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's
So
like 30-minute
max
drive.
30 miles, right?
Yeah, exactly. It looks like he's coming back in, maybe. Maybe he's got a Tyler at his house doing some work. Maybe he chopped through his internet cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is it seems like some of these ISV solutions, and that kind of felt like one that would have kind of come out of a school building a solution to their own problems, and then taking that solution and saying, let's go offer this to other schools kind of thing. Hey, you're back.
okay, sorry, I just had a power cut here. Like I'm in darkness. I don't know what happened there, but it's killed everything. I just switched to mobile internet. Let's see, are we back online? Have you got us back?
We never left.
Back. We weren't lost.
Yeah, we never left. The show continued without you. Matter of fact, all of a sudden we got a lot more watchers.
Classic.
We could see. No, you're in the dark there, and
yeah, I've lost power. I'm working off mobile now, and in fact, I'm on a laptop. Crazy.
When you run out to start the generator, we want to see you with your phone so we can see it. Watch the whole real live. What's that movie with Jim Carrey where they film his whole life?
Yeah, that type of thing.
Truman.
That's it. There you go, Truman. We got Truman over here.
I'll let you keep talking. I was going to see if I can turn my lights back on.
Okay.
So this show can only last as long as Mark's battery's in his laptop.
Nice. And then it'll disappear there. I mean, I think what you have is you have a lot of people who came from the student world that are now working for a company like Anthology. And they are focused on, solving that problem for not only their school, but all the schools. So when you have someone who's been doing admissions for 30 years, there's not much you can tell them. They pretty much know the process. So,
but I know Chris Cognetta, and he's telling them anyway.
Well, we're trying to open their mind to new technology to do different things, right? Instead of someone going through and answering an assessment of 600 questions, why not use some AI to try to figure that out, right? All you're doing is scoring, So if you're trying to score someone that's coming into your college, I mean, they had a process that they went through, and it's in someone's head, Why not try to build that out and figure it out so you can score students and where they would be and what type of aid they should get, and those are the things that are the fun parts, right? The biggest challenge.
I got to think that for something as customized as what you guys are obviously building for a school scenario, the first party sales app is useless. The first party, so none of these things are even remotely close to what you guys need.
Right.
So are you guys really building on the platform mostly, or are you still building on first party? Is there for some reason, or is there a motion unwind, or what is that?
So like every other body on this call, before we knew about platform only, everybody built under that Dynamics license and first party app, right? Yeah. So not only is so as you can imagine, education pricing is very, very aggressive, right?
Yeah.
But it's still an impact to schools. I mean, you're talking about they don't have the funding. Yeah. I mean, 5,000 students and $10 a month, and do the math, right? So so we are looking at ways to get off of that first party platform, which obviously, as you guys know, is not an easy process, right? We don't want to implement breaking changes, but we have a lot of ISVs like CafeX is a big example of things that we use. Microsoft Marketing, MSCRM add-ons, Telesign. We're integrated with all of these. And if you look at these tools, which entities do they use? They all use first-party entities. So when you start saying, I'm going to go and break apart my CRM system and I'm going to get away from the licensing model, and that's what we're talking about here, guys. We're talking about build my, you know, another thing I learned the other day, Steve, do you know accounts and contacts come with CDS?
Yeah.
Because every system needs accounts or contacts. It's the exact model in the Microsoft first party app. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, right?
Which is frankly, for something as custom as what you guys have probably ended up building, is probably all you ended up using anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically students in schools, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of
Everything else
the
is
relationship.
all custom. Yeah. But like you say, at the time when you're building it custom, you're building it on top of the first party. So you use what was there. And then over the years, you continue to use what, and other ISV solutions use what was there. Yeah. They didn't necessarily need to, but there wasn't any option and no reason not to. And now you got this whole thing built on top of this with all these tentacles stuck in. Yeah. And it's definitely a challenge. I mean, I'm sure any ISV out there right now would love to just snap their fingers and be able to withdraw those tentacles and not suffer any degradation or any problems.
Pick up the data model, rebuild it in, you know, CDS and move everything over. Certainly, you know, there's lots of tools that can help do something like that. But like, as you're mentioning, there's a lot of other constraint points. Here's another people don't think. They all go and get excited by the Wave release notes, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? Those are in the first party product. A lot of those changes, you're not getting them, right? So
not coming to the platform.
They don't come with the platform, right? So you got to be careful in some of that aspect on what you want to do and what you see, what you're interacting with. But hands down, I think, you know, the new people who are starting out, we're advising them for the same type of thing, right? Here you are, you got a brand new implementation, no matter what industry you may be in. You should consider looking at CDS as the base model, right? You have many different advantages. If you don't need that first party IP, why carry it, right?
Right now, I would say almost 100% of our new project opportunities, we're taking platform only. I'm not even, I will bring up the first party app long enough for them to understand why they would not want the first party app.
Exactly.
Both because of the cost and the fact that it's so far away from what they're ultimately going to need anyway. Let's just build it from the ground up. But my concern is, and then the other half of our business really is taking customers, not the size of a university, but taking other customers that have been using first party for a long time for basic stuff, and just let's rebuild some of these things and move you off those entities so we can drop you at least to PowerApps per user, if not to passes, and just not rely on that first party stuff. So I got to think that there's a lot of ISVs and SIs out there that are doing the same thing. And one of my concerns is that Microsoft is going to start throwing up some more dams. It seems like every time we get a clarification now where something wasn't made perfectly clear, and the most recent one I heard was about so you know, on the $10 pass, you are allowed to have 2 apps. I originally had heard 1 Canvas and 1 model driven and portal. You could have unlimited Canvas embedded in your model driven, but you can only have 1 Canvas and 1 model driven. Well, then I later heard, nope, you could actually have 2 Canvas or 2 model driven. That doesn't have to be 1 of each. Okay, well, that's actually a little better. We just got clarification here recently that, oh, by the way, the Outlook app add-in, that's considered one of your model driven, because that's a model driven app. That is one of your 2 apps. So if you build a model,
started with the team member stuff too, right? If you start playing with team member, you realize you only have 1 team member app with 15 entities. That's it. You can't make a different team member app for each division. It's just 1. So that model doesn't really work in what we're seeing, right? And you're right. My problem, and Mark, you probably agree with this too, is the licensing model changes so many times that trying to advise customers as an architect is very difficult, because we're doing it based on what we know is right to do, right? And what you do and do not need. But if you keep turning the screws on the marketing for us and changing how the platform is going to be built, that is certainly going to make a problem for us. If you do something like you're saying, Steve, put another limit somewhere that you can't do X.
Well, I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing the questions come up that didn't come up before as we're moving forward and raising these types of questions like, does the Outlook model-driven app count as one of my 2 apps on a pass? Which nobody thought to ask before. We all assumed it didn't, of course. And now when asked for clarification, Microsoft, it's not written down anywhere, but Microsoft came back and said, yes, that does count. So what we're seeing, and then with the same thing with the API limits a while ago, wait, what are the API limits on the pass? Oh, those are going to be 1,000. Well, you know, it's like when we ask for a clarification, every time we get an answer back that wasn't clear before, they're clarifying it down, really trying to.
Yeah.
I think they're getting a little nervous about cannibalization of the first party stuff.
Well, you know, what I think we are seeing, and we're watching it evolve, we're certainly involved in the internal conversation, but we are watching this split from Dynamics and the Power Platform, right? And we're seeing that while we're all Dynamics guys and came from that, there's a lot of other people using this platform to have nothing to do with Dynamics. They don't know Dynamics. They don't even, they look at me like, what's that, right? They don't know about it. They're SharePoint guys, they're Office guys. They just see it as a whole new technology stack, and the viewpoints are quite drastic from what we were used to dealing with to what you see now. So internally, I think that there's a battle on what's happening and what's going to be the branding. You know, I mean, is it Power? I heard the words, it should be PowerApps and Dynamics 365 better together, meaning that you can use either one, but when they work together, you solve a problem better, right? Easier.
Yeah.
So, but certainly, if we have these conversations where you're not using sales, then are you really a Dynamics customer, right?
You know, in the recent, there's been talk about the kind of the freebie entities, right? Because they've been part of the way they were protecting first party was by restricting entities, was the first kind of down and dirty, easy approach to protecting that IP. Essentially meaning if you build a Power App and you utilized one of these restricted first party entities, hey, you could have your Power App, but you're going to have to pay the first party app price for it. It was just kind of protecting that stuff. And then they decided, and Charles mentioned it on one of my pods, that yeah, they're going to get rid of that because that's not part of the whole idea. They're going to do something else and basically draw this thing. Well, I was on a call with the team about how they were going to do that. And the entire conversation assumed that you had Dynamics 365 and you were building Power Apps around it.
Right.
So this was the only scenario that they were considering for this, how they were going to get rid of this restricted entities idea is you have Dynamics and you're building these Power Apps around it and you want to make use of an entity that's restricted. This is the problem we need to solve for. And I was like, whoa, what about you're starting with a Power App? There is no Dynamics.
Yeah.
But
well, for instance, did you not, when you started with a blank CDS, right? Yeah. I mean, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, wait a second, there's business units in here.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, those are leftover. Yeah, those are actually leftover chunks, though. There's still some legacy chunks they haven't pulled out of that.
There's teams in there. There's access teams. There's security roles. I mean, if you look at it, those are
legit. But those are legit platform assets, right? You need those at a platform level. You know, you don't need. There's goals in there, and goals shouldn't be in there. They're leftover. Some other stuff. But
so if you're wondering what we're talking about, spin up a brand new CDS with no Dynamics in it, and you'll see what you get. It's not blank, despite private belief, and really trying to do things with it exposes some things like, should I say the word, polymorphic relationship problems and other things that we're used to seeing in the first party apps. You may not be able to replicate 100% in what you're doing in your Power App.
You know, I tell you, when I look at where they're at with that, when I look at where they're at with Flow or Power Automate now, and I look at where they're at with portals, and you hear the story that they feel like they're like 98% there. They got like 2% left. I feel like they're only halfway there.
Wow.
I think they've got a long way still to go. And every time we lift up some little corner, a whole bunch of little roaches are running around of stuff that's not right, not working, not the way it should be. And I just feel like their nose is way ahead of their feet on the whole story out there of this. And it makes me a little nervous that, I mean, I think they're going to get there, but you know, I'm talking to customers as you are, looking at citizen developer stuff, and you know, they're sitting there. They can't build anything. They can't build. But the most rudimentary little thing is about all they can build. Is the most rudimentary little crap.
Well, you know what it is. It's the Lotus Notes from the past, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to build a department-specific application, right? That has a few, maybe 1 or 2 screens that I can enter in data or access data on a list that's been there and solve that business process. But as soon as you try to tie that into Flow or do some integrations with that stuff, that's where that person doesn't logically have that experience. You know, my current boss tells me this story all the time. He says, citizen developer is nothing new. This has been going on for 45, 50 years of experiment of people trying to say, well, a citizen developer is going to do this. I think we're really close in what we have and what a good BA that has good experience in how that, you know, when you take someone that really knows the inner workings of that company, where things sit, how they built reports, they're very successful in being able to do that. But if you're just going to take the person who's sitting in the line and working one role and say, hey, do this, it's not going to happen.
I just don't like the overselling. I don't like building a Canvas app is just like PowerPoint. No, it's not just like PowerPoint. There's no formulas in freaking PowerPoint. I mean, there's no expressions in PowerPoint. It's not just like PowerPoint. Don't tell people this is just like PowerPoint.
I say PowerPoint and Excel combined.
Yeah, it just feels like it's kind of overselling a little bit, and people are buying into it, you know, and then they're kind of down the path, and you know, I keep having these conversations with customers that they're buying all this stuff, the story, and feeling like they're going to be able to turn we're going to revolutionize, digitally transform our entire business, and we'll be able to do it for pennies on the dollar by ourselves almost with a little outside help. And it's just not realistic. It's just not a realistic thing that's going to happen.
Mark, you look like a Taliban member in a cave.
I know, right? It's crazy. I've sorted out. We've actually lost power to our road, so.
You should have some sort of banner on the wall behind you that says "Down with America" or something.
Oh, yeah. Hey, one other thing I wanted to chuck out there is the new acquisitions. I see Microsoft's made another one in the past week or so. Has anyone seen that? It's a company. Let me just see if I've got the name right here. Cyberx. It's an IoT technology that is bought on June the 22nd after, and there was an ADMR software is another one they just bought after the Soft Motive acquisition.
What does that one do, ADMR?
They're data modeling startup out of the US. So yeah, I think part of that is going to become part of the Power Platform mix. My understanding is, they're open to some acquisitions at the moment.
Yeah, Soft Motive, we talked about that one earlier.
Yeah.
Norm was just bringing it up. Win Automation, isn't that Soft Motive?
Yeah, that's part of Soft Motive.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the same.
I just read an article.
It looks like Microsoft are getting back in the acquisition space and in the biz app area right after being so long. I think it's been 3 years since any decent acquisitions happened.
And these are little ones, though, aren't they? These aren't big dollar deals, are they?
Well, let me just see the price on one of them here. It was 165 million. Let me see. Oh, that was the value of the deal. Yeah, 165 million.
Yeah, well, that's not, you know,
I wouldn't mind being acquired for that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, Mark.
Let me know when we're all coming up with an idea so I can join on board as well.
Let's take the rest of your life off, isn't it? That type of money.
There's an article out there. It's called Cloud Wars, and it says Microsoft acquisition is getting scary, and that's good, meaning that other partners and vendors in the space are getting more concerned about the growth of where Microsoft is expanding in those areas. And for customers, it's great, right? Because the more you pull under and insert into the Power Platform for us to have, as far as Dynamics is concerned, or if you really say it's all on top of Azure, that's, just keeps growing the space and things that we can do.
Have you looked at Honeycode at all? Have you looked at Honeycode by AWS?
I have not.
So
Debbie's asking about what does RPA stand for, and Norm correctly said robotic process automation, but either you guys want to take a stab at explaining to Debbie what that actually is? Robotic process automation?
I would say in old school terms, that's screen scraping. Basically, it allows you to input into a screen based on pixel location of where data is for software that was never designed to have API input. So
like glorified OCR. Remember we used to scan stuff in and it would OCR would recognize the text and stuff. It's kind of like the next generation of that stuff, I guess.
I call it interactive OCR.
Interactive OCR, yeah.
It's where, if you look at one example of that is where you're doing scanning in PowerApps, and the interface comes up, gives you the information, but then you can see the fields of where it goes. That would be like an RPA process that you could automate that using Flow. Power Automate, and make that happen.
So what we're saying is something old is new again.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so many ways to solve a problem in some aspects, right?
I think it's the robotic part, Norm. Norm, it's robotic is what makes it sound cool. You throw robotic on anything, Look at this. Take a look at my robotic puppy. See, how much cooler does he look when he's robotic? I'm gonna change the name of our company to Robotic Start.
Nice.
It is a cool name. So what do you got going on, Chris?
Some really neat technologies that are out there. Like, have you guys seen the Microsoft Guide stuff?
I've heard about it, but I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, so Microsoft Guide. Picture someone that's doing a task like has to feed a wire through an aircraft engine, right?
Oh, with the HoloLens stuff?
Yeah, that is just, I want to see that stuff in the real world, right? They were
showing. You know when you're going to see that? You know when you're going to see that in the real world? When they offshore the construction of HoloLens to the point where it can be bought for $100 a unit, and people will buy for my 500 factory workers. So I'm not spending $3,000 a head, but $100 a head. Fine, everybody will have one, and then that whole technology will take off. But right now, the person that would be following that guide in those guides in a HoloLens is not paid enough money to justify buying a fucking HoloLens for their role. Wow. So it's not it's not even a realistic scenario. You're never going to spend, I mean, that's more than what you probably pay that person a month.
I totally love the support aspect of it where, and I'm not talking about computers, but like a guy has a problem with his car and you put your lens on and the guy that's at the dealership is seeing, oh yeah, grab that, and he points to the arrow. I mean, if you haven't seen,
how much tech does it take to change a light bulb?
Right. Hang on.
Sometimes
Ken is saying I'm completely full of shit, which he's not the first one to say that.
Ken's a big HoloLens fan.
He's doing a guides implementation right now, and that apparently I'm completely all wet on all that. But I still think that before that stuff's going to take off, the hardware cost has to get down to commodity level pricing to where you can afford to distribute it to your whole manufacturing floor workforce. Then you can really get some value out of that stuff.
They're probably going to segment out teams, have a couple people that can do that type of stuff. I mean, basically, it's nothing different than, to me, I look at it as when you talk about help desk, you have email, phone call, portal. Now you're adding this fourth one in there, right? Which is interactive, where you can have a team of 5 people supporting your entire customer base with that capability, right? But what does he say? I can't see the questions, but does he say what industry he's implementing it in?
3 factories. Yeah, 50 plus HoloLens 2 implementation.
Wow. Really cool
So,
stuff.
yeah,
Keep
it's
us
pretty-
posted. Send us some Twitter links. Tag us when you do an article on it. We'd definitely love to promote and see that. That's definitely an emerging space.
And Mark Wolenek's tossed in there. HoloLens SKU is 125 per month on a 3-year commitment. So kind of like a lease program where you can get those things a little less. So
Wow.
maybe it's a way of trying to get them into those hands. I think the best demonstration
Do
I
you
ever
have an
saw.
Apple phone? Can I check? Do you have an Apple phone?
I have an iPhone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to check, see if you're Apple fanboy there with your $1,000, $1,500 device these days.
I'm not an Apple fanboy, but the Microsoft phone just went to shit on me. So what choice did I have? I held on to it to the very end, till the very last app no longer worked on it, and then I had to switch. So
Well, the other guy on this call has had about 5,000 phones. So
the one I saw where it made the most sense was when I saw them doing the Chevron demo, where they got the people out on the oil derricks in the middle of the ocean.
right.
You know, and being able to have like a senior expert technician back at the home office talking to some basic mechanic out there, walking them through fixing oil wells and stuff like that. And that seemed like
Perfect spot.
Yeah, but if
almost written for the use case. You know,
if you saw Satya's presentation in Barcelona last year around where HoloLens 2 is going from being able to create virtual meeting rooms, I tell you what, under COVID and stuff, if these devices were sub $1,000, and we could all chuck on right now and have a virtual meeting wall, we can do mind maps on the wall behind us, post-it notes, all that kind of stuff, whiteboard, and be able to save out that room, and in a month's time come back and go, what was that item we wrote and stuck up there? And there it is still. I think, man, there's money in that.
Yeah.
If it can be at a commoditized price and we
Yeah.
can virtually meet that way, I think that would be a game changer, particularly for gathering requirements with customers, you know, running any kind of workshops, that type of thing. It would be massive. But as you say, it's got to come down to, you know, a sub $1,000, I think, to make that reasonable for companies to make that part of their video conference equipment in every business.
I don't think you said anything there of a use case that you just described that couldn't be done with one of these cheap VR headsets that are out there already.
No, you got to have the whole tech to save the room and all that type of stuff, you know, as part of it. And you need
other ones would do that.
No. As in what I saw in that demo was like, wow, I could really practically see this being used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't go after gaming at all with the technology also, but
yeah, it's a big market, right? But it's a price point still too high.
Well,
guys, we've wrapped up another hour. Any parting shots before we say ciao to everybody?
You know what? I'd love to maybe get Ken on one of these episodes and have him talk about that project he's doing to the degree that he can, because you know, whenever everybody says I'm full of shit, you know, I got to put them on the air and, you know, make them pay.
Ken, are you up to it, Ken? Let's see the thumbs up in the forum there, Ken.
Ken will do it.
Don't let him crush our dreams, Ken. I think it's going to come stronger here. Hey, gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. It was good seeing your voices, and hello to the audience. We're all worried, caring about you guys, and make sure you guys are staying safe. Hopefully we all get over this fast. So thanks for having me today, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on, Chris.
Ciao,
See you guys next week.